And we are live. We're back here at the Jaffa Port at Building Blocks here in Tel Aviv. Thank you again, Collider, for inviting us and hosting us. We got a rogue hoster here. I am very excited to be joined by Josh Schwartz, who is the founder and CEO of FORDeFi, okay, which is, I think, perhaps the best branding I've ever heard of it. I just mentioned that to Josh. He told me a funny story that we're not going to share here on the podcast. But why don't you tell us, not yet about what FORDeFi does, but more like who is Josh Schwartz, like what your background is, what was your genesis block coming into crypto, and then we'll get to FORDeFi as well.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from New York.
Okay, we can hear in the accent.
Yeah, New York. From Long Island in New York. So I was a more traditional finance guy. Worked at Cantor Fitzgerald, a couple of hedge funds. Was at Bloomberg for a number of years. And actually was at Bloomberg when I got a random call from a recruiter if I was interested in joining a company called BitGo. And this was in 2016. And, at the time I was like, is that whole Bitcoin thing, isn't that a scam? What's the story? As most TradFi guys were thinking at the time. And it was over a year from the time I first met the co-founders at BitGo till I eventually joined. And that was like me going down, as most people did, going down the rabbit hole of the space, understanding, especially from my perspective, sort of like the implications from a traditional finance perspective of like how market structure can be evolved to be far more efficient leveraging blockchain. So I eventually joined. I ran global sales at BitGo. I was then the chief operating officer at Curve, one of the first institutional MPC wallets. It was an Israeli company as well. And we eventually scaled it through the A round, eventually sold it to PayPal, became the back-end infrastructure of all of PayPal's blockchain wallet business, including the team that eventually launched PYUSD. I worked at PayPal for a couple months, trying to think about what was going to be next for me. And this was right around the time that DeFi was really taking off in the space. Beyond the POCs of CryptoKitties and all this other sort of fun stuff, really seeing
the maturation of the space.
Yeah, institutional access to liquidity and yield on a decentralized basis. And we realized very early on, I'm happy to go through it, but realized early on that like the wallet infrastructure and tools that were available at the time that were mainly built for CeFi settlement and transfers, like were leaving wide security gaps as it related to DeFi. Hence FORDeFi we started.
I mean, you just skipped to the end.
Okay, you want to hear more? I didn't know if you want to ask questions, and we do it a little bit.
No. I mean, we will do it back and forth, but I wanted so you had the idea for FORDeFi, and then like how did it materialize?
Sure.
How did you think of that name?
I'll tell you. Yeah. So like first I'll tell you like two interesting anecdotal stories, which I happen to have shared on the panel here today. Is first there was one of our clients at Curve, who was a large OTC desk, had told us that they had signed a 9-figure transaction in DeFi completely blind. This was like one data point that was in my head. And another interesting story was I used to be a big poker guy. I was playing at the...
funny, my previous guest had the same thing.
Can't say that in Israel. There's like no poker games in Israel. But I mean, at least official ones. I was the Block, the media outlet, the Block, used to host a poker game in New York, and I was playing at the game, and there was a trader at a crypto fund who said, it's scary how easy it is for me to steal my fund's assets, and I use like secure wallets. Okay. Why? Well, all I need to do, of course, I can't just transfer the assets. Like keys and key management was protected with policies to make sure I can't just transfer the funds and steal them myself. But all I have to do is create a smart contract, create a dApp that really all it does is pull the wallet's balances and funnels them to my own private address. And when it goes internally at my company for someone to approve this, they have absolutely no idea what they're approving. They're like, what's this for? I can tell them anything I want. Next thing you know, the wallet can be drained. We realized that whereas the first security concerns for wallets was around stealing one's keys or compromising one's private keys, and that's basically been solved, whether it was through multi-sig, HSMs, MPC, as most of the wallets now today are using. The problem when it came to DeFi, the billions of dollars that were lost, is you have no idea what you're signing. And even I go further.
Even like internal corporate controls, like you don't know who is signing.
Correct. So I'd say exactly. So I'd say it's like almost like two problems. Like A, you don't know what transaction you're signing. B, and B, you don't know if like the firm doesn't know if you have the ability or authority to sign up for certain amounts. And I go even further. Like as the market moved from transfers to DeFi, at a non-technical level, this is like a helpful way to think about this. V1 wallets, when the use case was about transfers, it's almost akin to like signing a check. And so, you had your checkbook that would say like, who can sign the check? How much can you write the check out for? To whom can you write the check? And by the way, once the check clears and the funds, go, you don't care anymore. This is how CeFi settlement transfers work. When it comes to DeFi, especially the way most people interact with DeFi, when we connect to the dApps, they are the ones that generate the transactions that we arbitrarily sign. It's literally, smart contracts are like contracts. And what do you tell when you sign a contract? You're a lawyer. Is you say, you better read the fine print.
Yeah.
And it's literally as if you're sitting at your desk and a bunch of different folks are bringing papers in front of you, covering all the papers and saying, sign. And so this is like one of the major challenges in DeFi. And then I'd say one other thing I'd say is when you sign, even in a happy flow, when you're signing what you do want to sign, you don't just transfer the funds and you don't care anymore. Usually now your assets are in a pool. These are still your positions. You care about these positions. There's other things you have to think about as far as risk management on your current position. So with this is when
okay, so the need was there. At that time, other players like Fireblocks weren't at the scene yet?
Yeah, so Fireblocks, of course, existed. Tremendous amount of respect for Fireblocks. After we sold Curve, we transitioned. PayPal was basically buying our company for the tech and the team. They didn't want to provide non-custodial wallets to crypto-native institutions. So we basically transitioned our clients, and many of them we sent to Fireblocks. So a lot of respect for the team. But yeah, they were a good example of a wallet that was built for CeFi settlement and transfers. So it's just it wasn't the need at the time, and sort of not what they built for. And so that's what we set out to build FORDeFi. So I'd say the three.
Give me a time frame now. What year is this?
End of 21.
Okay.
Yeah. So
perfect time.
Yeah, exactly. So it
was a great time to raise.
It was a good time to raise. We were also coming off of our exit to PayPal, and it's sort of good. We raised $18 million in our seed round. At Lightspeed led the round. It was everyone from PayPal, Microsoft, Electric Capital, Castle Island, Jump, all the major players were involved. I'd say the three core components of our differentiators from a product perspective. First, we're a non-custodial MVC wallet, so we hold some MVC shares. Our clients hold some MVC shares. We hold it securely. Clients can do all their transfers and policies, just like all the V1 wallets, manually, programmatically, all of the success. Three main differences is connectivity to dApps. So, of course, as we know, DeFi market structure is super fragmented. So the fact that even I would say at the end of our time at Curve, we were the first MMI, MetaMask institutional partner. So we had the first institutional clients that were doing DeFi using us, where they were using MMI as their connectivity, their browser extension to connect to dApps without putting their private key in the browser. Most retail wallets that have a browser extension have a private key in the browser, and obviously this is super not secure. But even that is even the MMI had a problem with EVM. So now what if you're an institution and you want to interact on another chain and interact on dApps on additional ecosystems? I say the parallel is, imagine you're a TradFi asset manager. You have some product that you use when you want to trade Tesla stock, and all of a sudden you want to trade IBM. You're like, wait a second, we need a whole new
infrastructure.
This is literally how it works in DeFi today until FORDeFi. So with us, we built a browser extension that works out of the box and connects to any dApp on any of our chains. We support over 90 chains. We support 98% of all TVL on chain. And so this is if a user, for example, is on Jupiter, Uniswap, or Osmosis, 3 dApps and 3 totally different ecosystems, the exact same
infrastructure.
So this is the first thing, connectivity. Second thing is transparency. We're the first ones before any companies that they do this as their whole business. We do this as one of our components, where we do things like smart contract enrichment. So we do things like transaction simulation. We show you in our extension what is going to happen if you sign this transaction to the balances in your wallet. We give you
literally what you're talking about, just giving access to the fine print.
Yep, exactly. Rather than seeing raw contract call data, you literally see what is the transaction that you're going to be signing. You see things various risk alerts. If it's the first time that you're interacting with a contract, you're wait a second, I have a weekly yield farming strategy. This is weird. Why is it saying it's the first time? Maybe I'm getting fished. Actually, I have a really cool story about this. Just to go back, is this is a year and a half ago. One of our product guys was doing a bridge on what they thought was Synapse. Turned out it was phishing site, and everything will look the same, and the extension connected, and the transaction's about to go. And then all of a sudden, our extension pushes out information like, alert, this is the first time you're interacting with this contract. This person had.
And he's like, what do you mean? I interact with them all the time.
I see the simulation where the balances are just leaving. They said, like, you're giving an allowance to an EOA. Like, what's happening here? Looked into it. Not only did we find out that, of course, this was an attempted attack, but we actually tracked $1.8 million that was stolen, tracked it to Gate.io, and informed the exchange. It was a really cool story that all happened because are
those tools that you typically have embedded within your platform, like the ability to reach out to the exchange and notify them?
So no,
or that was like an ad hoc thing.
This was like, hey, we found this. This is like, let's try to do what we can to help the ecosystem. But so I think like the enrichment, we do things like we have like a DApp directory of hundreds of thousands of contracts mapped to their name. So when we tell you that you're actually on the correct contract, what you think it is, these are the kind of tools that give you that comfort. So that's like in the transaction enrichment bucket. So it's connectivity, enrichment, and the third is governance. So we actually whereas V1 wallets do things like, hey, I'm transferring, require 3 people to approve if it's more than a certain amount. Of course we do this. But when it gets to DeFi, it's like, for example, if that trader is changing their allowances on Uniswap for a particular vault to $1,000, maybe you don't need to wake 3 people up around the world to approve this. Maybe you actually want to ahead of time set your governance that says, what are my tolerances that are DeFi specific, for each individual user, etc. So
it's fully customizable.
Fully customizable. So as a result, we see like lots of different types of clients using us. We've got obviously asset managers, some of the largest like DeFi native funds, VCs, which is a good example of someone that needs to have like they invest in a project, they have tokens, it's cross-chain, it's cross-project, so they have to make sure that they have like ubiquitous connectivity. Traditional asset managers like Van Eck and others that are using us. We have a lot of the trading firms, all the on-chain market makers from Wintermute and Kirox, Salini, etc. Some of the largest protocols, exchanges, and Web3 companies like tokenization platforms, bridges. They're sort of all using us.
I feel like you're listing all my clients.
Well, that's good we met here.
Very, very cool. Okay, give me some thoughts for the future, like new products that you guys are working on. You're, can't hide the fact that you're American. What are your thoughts, just given the new administration and its new stance on crypto? I know you guys, like as a product, are less exposed to the local regulation, but certainly many of your clients are. You must be feeling somewhat bullish.
Yeah, totally. So, look, I would say we were just having a chat about this by our booth here. It's kind of crazy when we think about how close this election was and what would have been for our space. And obviously, since then, I'd say like the president has certainly so far lived up to his word with regards to the industry and all the guidance that seems to be moving forward and coming. And I think in general, the market's very bullish on this. I'll just say like having worked at both like non-custodial wallets, regulated custodians, I could say that most people in the space, and I think this is like our current administration understands this, most people in the space want to do the right thing. They just need the guidance of saying, what can I do and how should I and how should I act? And so I think what most people are excited about, whether it's the current crypto players or of course the institutions, banks, etc., on the sidelines.
There are actual rules.
Tell me the rules, and now we do it. And so obviously everyone's pretty excited about that. You're right. I think our role is less because we are purely non-custodial. We're just like a platform that clients use to secure their assets. But of course, as it's important to our clients, it's important to us as well. As far as like general roadmap stuff, there's like clients are obviously always looking for additional ecosystems, additional chain support. This is something that's really important. There are some things as we started with our core differentiators on the DeFi side. I think one of the things that sometimes people don't realize is even though it's FORDeFi, obviously it's not just FORDeFi. To build a V2 wallet infrastructure, of course, means that we can facilitate all of the V1s. And so we've started to see that now with a lot of like exchanges and payment use cases where folks are coming to us also. Partially because if you think about the institutional adoption curve, like what do you see? You see like people actually start, and this is the beauty of what ETFs, what we saw last year, is like people start in the space with exposure without even touching anything in crypto. They touch an instrument that like looks sort of like it, like something that they're familiar with, like a stock, like i.e. the Bitcoin ETF. Eventually we start seeing that like whether it's corporates and others that are putting crypto on their balance sheet, then they start saying, hey, I want to earn some yield, I can stake this, and then we're full on DeFi, And so I think that the idea that we are seeing with folks who aren't even yet in full-on DeFi use cases, but they do want to work with providers that they know can handle every piece of that adoption curve that are there for them now, and also have the tools as they evolve. So that's another
fantastic. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for coming and sharing a little bit with us. If people want to find out more about ForDeFi, what's the best way to get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, best way is by the website, ForDeFi.com. Reach out, have demos, calls.
And it's ForDeFi, ForDeFi, FORDEFI.com. And reach out, and you can find Josh on LinkedIn. And thanks for joining me, man.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Code. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, share with your friends, and to tune in again next week for more fun and insightful conversation.